channel. In this video, I'm going to be sharing some tips from my recent 3-day and 4-night stay at Walt Disney World. If you're like me and you haven't been to Disney World in a few years, a lot has changed and it can feel very overwhelming. So these are some tips that I wanted to share, and let's get into it. My first tip would definitely be to plan your trip far in advance, at least 60 days in advance, so that you can actually make those reservations. First and foremost, make sure that you book your park reservations. So just because you have a ticket doesn't mean that you have a reservation to the actual park, and you want to do that as soon as possible. And then also restaurants and experiences, you also want to try and book 60 days out. So this can be kind of the fun part. Definitely get together with who's in your party and pick which restaurants are really important to you and try and get those reservations in as soon as possible. Before our trip, I heard a couple other Disney tip videos recommend not to book too many table service reservations for your trip because it would take a lot of time, be kind of chaotic, eat up a lot of your park time, which I do understand. I think if you did like a breakfast reservation, lunch, and dinner every single day, that would be a lot. But for us, at least on our trip, at the end of the day, we were all definitely ready to sit down and have a meal. So if that's something that you think is going to be important to your family as well, definitely make sure that you book those reservations in advance. Speaking of tickets and park reservations, you're now going to have to decide if you want to do all of the parks, which ones are most important to you, how long you're staying, and also you want to decide on park hoppers. So for us, we did do a park hopper and we wanted to do all of the parks. We hadn't been in years and we definitely wanted to see them all, and this was like the time we had off work, right? So we decided to park hop one day Animal Kingdom and Epcot. My personal experience was that we did not get to enjoy Animal Kingdom and Epcot as much as I would have liked with park hopping. Park hopping is, first of all, you can't do it until after 2 p.m. And it is just kind of chaotic. You have to catch a bus, or if you park, you're gonna have to take the time to get your car and get over there. And it just eats up a lot of time in your day. And I think if you're someone like me that really wanted to see the parks, hadn't been in so long, this might not be the experience for you. One thing I would recommend is to really take a day for each park if you can. If you're someone that frequently visits Disney World and maybe you have like a preference on fireworks shows, then park hoppers is probably a great way to go. But my suggestion would be to just try and do one park per day and really make sure that you get the most out of it. Another thing that I would recommend if you have time and if you're able is definitely to plan a rest day in between park days. I really wish that we did have time to do this. Just don't underestimate how exhausting it can be and the difference that it can make in the next day if you are a little bit well rested. Another tip on making reservations for dinners and just for park reservations in general is you want to check to make sure that there's no special ticketed events on that date that you would like to go to the park, unless of course you want to go to the special ticketed event. But for example, when we went back in September, it was Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party happening at Magic Kingdom. And for us, we did not want to go to that. I really wanted to see the fireworks. That was like my main thing. I wanted to see the Magic Kingdom fireworks, but the park was going to be closed to only the special ticketed holders at that point. And I don't even know, maybe they did like a different fireworks show, but I would have missed it. So we were able to switch our day to a night that that event wasn't happening. So definitely be on the lookout for that, as if you don't want to do the event, you would have less time in the parks. Also, with booking reservations for restaurants, you do want to check the time for the shows. If you do want to see the fireworks show at Magic Kingdom or Epcot or Fantasmic, if that's really important to you, then you want to make sure that your dinner reservation doesn't conflict, because sometimes the more popular restaurants will actually have those times available because a lot of people don't want to be eating during it. So that's just something to look out for. Next, in planning your Disney trip is you're going to have to decide on a place to stay. So the first thing you want to consider is if staying on Disney property is something that's going to be important to you. For us, I thought it was really nice and convenient because you have the buses right there. That got us to the parks very fast, as well as you get 30 extra minutes in the park depending on which resort you stay at. You get some extra time. So I think that that's really nice. There's also the Disney Good Neighbor hotels as an option, but for us, I felt like it was worth it to stay on property. Another thing you're gonna have to look at then, if you do wanna stay on property, is value, moderate, or deluxe resorts. Obviously, this depends a lot on family budget, but I just wanna say in the past few months, we've stayed at the Disney Pop Century Value Resort twice. And those rooms are very nice. I still felt like I was in the Disney bubble. They're very clean, a little bit small, but they're actually really nice because they've been updated. I remember staying there as a kid and thinking they felt like old-fashioned, but they really have updated them and they feel very nice now. So that's an option if you're looking at the value resort. That being said, if you do want to stay somewhere a little bit nicer, one thing I would say is if you are planning on just hitting the parks, like being at the parks the whole time, and you're not going to spend a lot of time in your hotel room, then I wouldn't say springing on a resort is really going to be worth it because you're not going to be able to enjoy it. But as I mentioned earlier, if you can take a rest day, like a day just to sit by the pool and enjoy your resort, then I feel like it really might be worth it for you to look at some of the more expensive resorts, because there are some really beautiful resorts and they can definitely, if you have time to enjoy them, be very enjoyable for your family. My next tip, which I don't even know what number I'm on at this point, I'm kind of just chatting with you like we're friends. My next tip would definitely be to game plan with the group that you're with each night for what you want to do the next day. So discuss what rides are important to you. One thing that I wish I did was look at certain food items or drink items that I really wanted to try and kind of had a little list to make sure that I hit those up. I kind of feel like we wasted just a little bit of time on food that wasn't really worth it. So if there is anything in your party that you really want to experience, then get that all out the day before. Another thing you're gonna have to decide on is if you want to purchase Genie Plus for the day. So this service, if you're not familiar with it, it can range in price between $15 to $30, I believe, depending on the busyness of the park for that day. And it is per person, per day, per park. So this is definitely something that can get pricey, especially if you're traveling with a large family. We did do it each day, and I believed that it was worth it just because of how we were doing our trip. Again, we really wanted to see all the parks and see all the rides, as many as we could, and it was very convenient to be able to book the Lightning Lane. Just something to consider, lines are rough. The longest one that we stayed in that we weren't able to get a Lightning Lane for was Frozen, and it was about an hour and a half. And let me just tell you, you feel that. You start to feel like you're losing time in the park, and it's just a little rough. Of course, it is doable. But that was my personal experience. I thought that for me and my husband, at least, the extra money was worth being able to get on the rides. So you're gonna want to purchase Genie Plus. You can purchase it at midnight the day of your trip, and then at 7 a.m. is when you can kind of book your first Lightning Lanes. So that is an option for you if you want to look at it. But another thing that I saw families doing, which I thought was really sweet, if you are going to be standing in a long line, I saw people playing games on their phones. So they were playing like Psych or Heads Up, and the Disney Play app has a lot of fun games too. So if you are going to stay in a long line, maybe plan to make it fun ahead of time, especially if you have children. I think that that's a really nice tip. If Disney Plus is not something that you can realistically spring for, then I would definitely recommend getting to the parks early to try and beat some of those crowds and get on the rides that you want. Another thing you're gonna have to decide is what time you plan on getting to the parks. If you're gonna get there really early, or if you kind of want to arrive later in the afternoon. So for us, we opted to get there first thing, and we did rope drop at all of the parks. If you're not familiar with that, rope drop basically means you can get into the park, but you cannot access any of the parts with rides until you literally walk up here. I'll put a little diagram if I can on the screen. You can walk up to where the rope actually is and wait for that to go down. And then you can run to the first ride, the whatever one is most important to you for that day. And that does cut down on wait times by a lot. So that was really helpful. One, between having Genie Plus and rope dropping, we were able to knock out so many rides like before noon, which was amazing. So that is definitely a good option. just be mindful that if you don't do that, you're gonna have the larger crowds once the afternoon rolls in, but it's definitely still an option. And if you stay at a deluxe resort, you can actually stay later into the evening in the park if that's something that you would prefer. My next tip is to wear the ugly shoes. Wear the ugliest, most comfortable worn-in shoes that you own. Do not wear new shoes. Do not try and be going for style here unless you're only gonna be at the park for a little bit. But if you are planning on being there all day and walking all day, please do not underestimate how much your feet can hurt. It's no joke, and you do not want to get blisters and all of that. It's just not fun. So I do have a pair of shoes that I recommend that I wore the entire time and did not hurt me once. Well, I take that back. I mean, you're walking that much, your feet are gonna hurt a little, like they were a little sore, but I really feel like it wasn't the shoe's fault. So I just packed them away because I'm going on a trip and bringing them again because they're that amazing. But I will link them down below. Maybe pop a picture up here. They are the Reef Water Vista shoes, I believe. And they come in a few different colors. And they can get wet, which is really nice. And like I said, they were a dream. They were amazing and really did not hurt me at all. My next tip is a little bit silly, and I hope I'm not trying to offend anyone in Florida about your water, but I brought a refillable water bottle and I was like, I'm gonna save money. I'm not gonna buy the $5 water bottles. I'm just gonna fill up at all of the little water fountains. I did not like the taste of the water. Like it was very different. And if Florida water is not something that you're used to, you might not like it either. So might be worth it to buy the $5 water or bring in filtered water for yourself. You definitely want to stay hydrated, and if you don't like the taste of the water, that's not gonna happen. So that is just an extra little tip there. And that is it for my Disney tips. I hope that you found these helpful if you're planning a trip soon. And if you are, I hope that you have a wonderful time. I'm so grateful for the trip that we got to take. I'm already missing it and wanting to go back. But I hope that you have a wonderful trip, and thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed it and give it a like. Until next time, bye! Baby, you're the best I ever had.